Hi, Renan Joran here. Are you buying relatively high quality products, high value products, watches, nice jewelry, high-end electronics, and so on? Well, do not follow the most common quality control standards, acceptance sampling based on AQL and all these kind of things. We're going to cover this in this video. I'm going to show you what makes more sense for you. Hi, in this video we're going to cover why if you have a high quality standard, AQL inspections do not make much sense for you. If you can tolerate 3% of defects from time to time in a batch of 5%, you'll be doing fine. However, if it incurs very high costs, then the typical random inspections are not appropriate. Okay, so luxury goods, premium electronics, aerospace parts, medical devices, and so on. There's a lot of products actually that fall into this category. So a typical inspection based on ISO 2859-1 or military standard 105E does not guarantee the very precise results in terms of defects found. All right, so here's what a lot of buyers assume. Hey, we follow this standard that at level 2, which is what the standard says should be okay for the number of number of samples to pick, okay, by default. AQL limit of 1% of major defects. And then if the inspector pays a lot of attention on sampling, basically does a good job sampling really at random, I can be confident that we'll never find more than 1% of defects. Well, that is really not true, and actually the standard itself warns you about that. In this standard, page 38, there's a table, and then if you look at an AQL limit of 1% with a sample size of 200 pieces, which is quite common, it says that yes, from time to time you might still receive up to that percentage of products with that kind of defect. That's nearly 5%. So why? Well, basically the producer's risk. Okay, what is the producer's risk in a random inspection? Producer's risk is that a good batch is rejected. Okay, it is capped at 5%. And actually, the consumer risk of accepting something that is actually not good is 10%. Okay, it's more favorable to the supplier than it is to the buyer. But intuitively, anyway, it does make sense. It's based on random sampling. You cannot be sure that if you find, let's say, 1% of defect on 200 pieces, that the whole batch of, let's say, 5,000 pieces also has only 1% of defects. So, something that happens often, all right, is that the defects are not spread randomly in the batch. For example, the battery cover is good for the first 95% of the pieces. Then, we'll run out. Then we're going to use this other cover, which is not approved, but who cares? We have to ship the pieces now, right? So the last 5% is wrong. Maybe the color is entirely off, okay? Now, and all of this is, let's say, in one export carton out of 20. What's the proportion that, what's the chance that the inspector will actually find that out? What is the chance that, that carton will actually be picked for inspection? Not very high. That's an example, okay? Also, if you sell to your customers, they're not going to get the full batch of, say, 5,000 pieces. Maybe they're only going to get a couple of boxes. And then imagine if one of these boxes includes all of the bad battery covers, for example, right? Or one of them is, half of the products are defective right there because maybe it was the end of production. Well, they're going to complain to you very, very loud. And you cannot tell them, hey, no, we did our inspection on the full batch and it was okay. So why is it not okay on your small batch? No, in this case, you cannot really argue with them. Okay. There's also human errors. Obviously, inspectors, don't always report exactly what they should find and report. The factory also, let's say you buy from a Chinese or a Vietnamese factory and then they sorted out some bad products, there's an inspection, it passes. It is extremely tempting in for example, the 48 hours between the inspector leaves and the carton leave the factory in a container. It's very tempting for them to salt the bad pieces here and there, right? It's just very, very tempting. Sometimes it's too tempting for them. So your percentage of defectives suddenly goes from 0.3% to 3%, right? Now, a lot of people say, okay, that's right, but let's make it more strict, more tight, lower limits. Well, if you do that, suppliers in China, but also in Vietnam, in Indonesia, and so on, will say, well, whoa, your quality standard is really going up. The price is also going up. So, because they tend to think, and we'll cover that a little bit later in this video, that there's only one way of raising the quality standard. It's basically to put more manpower on inspection activities. It's a very old school approach, but that's the way most of them think, and it means that they might just raise the price or even refuse your orders. This is a risk you need to keep in mind. So what would be better? A 100% inspection piece by piece by your own team will usually catch most of the defects. Okay, sometimes you have to do a 200% inspection if it's really, really important not to let any defect go by. Okay, dynamic sampling plans also make sense. You start with a random inspection. If you find really zero defect, you say that's it. If you find some defects, you keep going. Now, one very important concept is that if you go at the end of the line and you try to find the defects, well, in the long run, you keep doing that, you're not going to reduce the number of defects in the first place, right? As Deming said, you have to build quality in, not inspect quality out. And first thing, obviously, try to make sure your supplier understands that a high defect rate is expensive. For them, it's more scrap or rework, re-inspections. When there's some problems, production planning is disrupted, maybe they have to expedite something, give a discount, and they lose customer confidence, right? The second thing is you have to get them out of this way of thinking. Okay, this is a typical way of thinking. So as the quality of the products goes up, well, you have fewer failure costs. That's great. But also, to make it possible to have higher quality, the inspection activities and all kinds of other activities go up and the costs go up. So then people say, well, there's an optimal place here. Let's make 97% good products. But if you want 99%, it's going to be much more expensive. No. This is not the way to think. This is a very old school approach. Okay, it is possible. There's many ways, but I mean, just think of when problems are detected, actually looking at the root cause and implementing corrective actions and making sure that they stick over time. If you just go ahead with this very reactive approach, you wait for the problems to come up, And then the ones that are serious or that come up more than once, maybe you do a very serious root cause analysis, and then you really go down to fixing this root cause or these root causes, right? Well, I can assure you that after a while your quality level will be much higher. Okay, and there's a bunch of other ideas here, better layout, more simple design, and so on. But this is not the topic of this this video. So I hope it was helpful. Basically, if you buy products with a very high quality standard, be careful. Do not go with the standard kind of inspections. Quality assurance agencies can usually set up something for you, but if your orders are relatively high, it makes sense usually to work on the manufacturing processes and systems. And if you cannot afford to do that, you cannot do that, well, really, it goes back to supplier selection. Select the right supplier to who already work at the quality standard that you need. Well, that's it for today. Thank you. Hope it was helpful.